Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to UX Insiders, a live event hosted by the UX Design Institute and featuring contributions from the most interesting and most creative people in the UX field. By providing insights into the real-life working world, we aim to bridge the gap between education and industry for budding UX designers. At the UX Design Institute, we aim to deliver world-class education to the next generation of UX professionals and leaders by providing industry-approved and university-accredited online courses in both UX and UI design. And speaking of world-class, joining us today is Srecko Dimitrijevic, a product designer with Miro. Formed in 2011, Miro is the virtual whiteboard that allows teams to brainstorm and collaborate as they work in office, remotely, or take the hybrid approach to work. Over 35 million people use Miro across the globe, and one of our recent LinkedIn surveys, 44% of our poll takers voted Miro as the best documentation tool in UX. With over 14 years behind him in design, Srecko's design thinking helps users to adapt to new normal ways of working and allows them to get things done at their own pace. This evening, he will share insights on how he has adapted to new design roles and how leaving his comfort zone wasn't necessarily a bad thing. We are so excited to have you here today, and the response to this event has been so positive. There'll be plenty of time for a Q&A later, so I'll ask anyone tuning in to please type any questions you have for Srecko in the questions panel, and we'll run through them at the end of the event. If you see a question that you would particularly like to hear the answer to, please upvote it. So here we go. Srecko, welcome. How are you?
Lois, yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure, and hi to the crowd as well.
Yeah, the adoring crowd. So we would love to hear a little bit about your background before Miro and a bit about the work that you do today. So I believe you've got a bit of prepared.
If you don't mind, I prepared of course, Miro board, and I would like to share a screen just for this quickly to illustrate that. So yeah, I had quite a lot of changes in career. So here I graduated as you can see as a baby designer, and then I started in graphic design since I graduated from graphic design, and naturally worked as graphic design all the way to art director in a marketing agency. After that, I kind of moved more towards visual design and UI design, where I was working like a freelance for a New York-based company in various industry clients. Then next stepstone was actually having my own studio from 2015 to 17, where I was working mostly with US-based healthcare startups. And then I think this is like a big change where I decided that I would like to, first of all, experience life abroad outside of Serbia, and also to be more focused on the product development and to work in an actual product development team, cross-functional team. And this is when I moved to Germany, and then I had a couple of things here. So first stepstone was Zato, which was, as I said here, imagine Netflix for TV content. So it was entertainment industry. Then I jumped into Ada, which is a diagnostic app in healthcare industry. After that, I was working a bit in Softgarden for a year on the applicant tracking system, so recruiting basically. And yeah, here we are today in a Miro. So that would be the short story of it. But as you can see, a lot of switches there.
And we were actually just talking before we tuned into the event, the great privilege it is with UX to be able to travel anywhere in the world. So
exactly.
that is a big plus for anybody who's getting started or considering a career in UX.
Exactly. I think our vocation is great for that kind of deal, where you can really, especially nowadays, you can work from ever, right?
So I'd love to hear a little bit about your responsibilities as a product designer with Miro, and kind of what your day-to-day kind of looks like and the work that you take on.
Sure. So first of all, my team and I, we're working on asynchronous collaboration. In simple human language, what that means, it's two or more people working on the same project in a different time, also place, but time first of all. It's the most important factor. So this is my team, and of course within the team, as a product designer, my main responsibility is to advocating for the great UX and the great experience as much as we can achieve.
And Miro obviously has so many people who use it every day for so many different projects within wide-ranging teams and wide-ranging companies, and it within Miro itself, you have so many different roles and so many teams as well.
Yes.
So it really is as reflective as it is for the people who use it. So we'd love to hear a little bit about the many different roles within Miro and how you actually handle working with a cross-functional team.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. So when it comes to my nuclear cross-functional team, that's not that hard because I have really awesome team of developers and my dear PM and development lead. But it's a good question in general. Like especially in a company of this kind of size, you need to constantly align with the people and kind of step back and try to understand what you're doing in which way that fits with the overall strategy, how that fits with the other aspects. You made a really good observation that there's a lot of things just in Miro, right? So you can imagine that if I want to do something, I really need to align with the Canvas team. I need to talk to core. So everything basically that you could affect one way or another, you need to talk to people. And I think over communication, that's a way to go. And it's the best recipe, or at least something that worked for me, that you need to constantly praise what you're doing, how you want to do it, to have a rationale of what you're doing. And of course, as I said, to really talk a lot to people. I think the more senior you go, the more you talk and less you do the hands-on work, to be honest. It's that kind of a deal.
So who would be the main people that you would communicate with on a daily basis?
So on a daily basis, that's for sure my team. So it's like the holy trinity of design and product and development. So I would my day would start preferably around 10, where I can go through our Jira backlog or to my to-do tasks and just talk directly to my PM and to development lead, getting what's like having a look at what's at hand, what we want to tackle first, prioritizing. So these are the people that I talk really a lot. It's like my family here, so we are the closest. We even sit together here in the area. I'm in the Miro office right now. But besides that, I would say that also so this is one kind of responsibility when you need to do in your cross-functional team. But we also have like another layer, which would be design org, meaning that Miro is huge, and as a design team, we also need to have a lot of meetings and like just to align again, and as I mentioned before, to make sure that what you do is in compliance with your whole chapter and then with the rest of the product.
So like you said, you're a big fan of over communication.
Yes.
Could you explain that a little bit more in more detail with the level of kind of maybe meetings and then feedback?
Yeah, of course. So basically, let me give you a very tangible example, and it happened a couple of days ago. So I did something, and my team lead asked me about it, and I said, "But I did that," and he said, "But I haven't seen it." So you didn't. So this is a very simple example of it, where you really, whatever you do, you need to constantly show that to people, and immediately I would also what I like to do is to come to people with a concrete CTA. So I don't like just to like to send you a picture and like, hey, this is what I did, but also to kind of, if I have some certain CTA for you, whereas that's let's say I need a feedback on something specific or whatever else it's in question. But usually it goes like that. So with a certain ask right with it.
So you would be dealing a lot with a lot of people who have quite design thinking in action.
Yes, but also like regardless of I don't know, maybe especially aside, you would say Miro is like a company that has a great design, or at least we like to think so. And you would say that everything is fine, but still, even in that kind of maturity of UX in the company, you still need to talk all the time about the design. You still need to explain why is this important, why are we meeting either strategic needs or user needs or what we are working on. So
I think a lot of people, when they first break into UX or when they first break into the design world, they're obviously quite passionate about it because why else would they have gotten into this industry? But when you're speaking to people who are outside the design team or outside of the product team, sometimes it can be quite difficult to kind of explain what it is that you're doing. So how would you recommend making design an accessible and an approachable conversation topic?
So I would say there were in my opinion, two ways. So first of all, it's a very simple one, and that can be phrased something like speaking other people's language, meaning that if I talk to you as a designer to designer, and then we will probably discuss flows, interactions, how something should work. So all about user experience. If I talk about the very same thing, but I talk about product manager, then I'm going to talk more about timeline, about how this fits into strategic needs, how we're going to do, how we're going to present it to the top level management. If you talk to developers, again, imagine the very same screen that you're presenting. You're going to talk. You're not going to, come to them and say like, "Hey, this is purple color." You would say like, you would talk about technical terms. You would talk about, I don't know, how that color can be implemented in CSS, etc., etc. So very simply said, it's like just talking in other people language as much as possible, I guess. And also beside that, the other thing would be, which I think it's actually primary role of a designer, is to facilitate continuously facilitate the environment for people so they can participate in design. We can talk a bit more about that as well, but in short, I think that's very important to enable people to participate in design decisions and also to be designers as well.
And is it a bit of a thrill when you suddenly discover that other people are now getting as excited about design as you are?
Yeah, that's a good one, but I think it's your job to make them exciting. To be honest, it's like we are also sellers, aren't we? So I believe that if you have a good rationale for what you made, and if it really fits good with, as I said, with strategy, with the rest, where company is moving, people would usually get excited. If they're not, then you should try to make them next time. With that, something like that.
We've got some questions here about time management when it comes to different projects and products. So typically, how long would a project go on for?
So yeah, I'm not sure if you can answer that very simply, but let's say that some average time could be around 6 to 8 months. So you need to kind of not drop the ball on the way. So that's one of the important things, because it's not it's not just, so you need to kind of spread that passion all the way through and to keep the level as much as you can to the end, because it's usually they're not that short, unless you're doing some slight changes in the UI or something very simple. But usually when it comes to the project, it's going to be like that, because of course you need to go through discovery stage, and then you need to understand the market, the need, then you need to define the problem that you have, and then eventually to solve it. So it takes time together with all the research coming in and other activities and alignments, as I was mentioning before.
Okay, so would it be safe to assume that if you're taking on a new project, mentally you almost have to block 6 months for it?
Yeah, but it's to be honest, in real life, it's usually you cannot really just like separate it, right? And wanted in the right, we are multitaskers. That's what we usually do. I personally don't mind that, but take it with a pinch of salt, because it's in my example, I know people who do mind it. So it's kind of up to you to try to find the best balance in between this stuff. What is very important is to keep in mind, again, over communicate and just align with everyone, and then this will funnel down to priorities, and then it's very easy. You say, okay, this is the number one, this is number two, this is number three. Also, one interesting thing, I don't know, sometimes we are not doing exact science, and sometimes you will come to job and you're not very either motivated or you're maybe tired. So sometimes what I do is just to push myself into doing something I micromanage myself with some stupid tasks, such as, I don't know, make a list of something. So just something to start rolling the wheel, something like that.
And you've technically answered this question, but this is a question from Joe, who asks, do you work on one product at a time, or how do you space it out?
So currently in Miro, yes, but usually that comes with, so usually you would belong to a certain chapter that has, like in our case, so we are asynchronous collaboration. Right now we are working on something I will show you later if time allows, what I'm working on, but it means that you will have like different areas within that one area, right? So you will explore different like a type of features or stuff like that. So it might happen that you work more than one, but usually they would be within the same kind of area. Of course, in my career, like in Soap Garden, I had it can happen that you work on something like a product, but aside for that, for example, I was working on revamping the visual look and feel. So it can happen. It's often happened that, as I said, we are multitaskers, and you need to switch. But if you keep your priorities up to date, and if you're talking to people constantly, it shouldn't be that much of a problem. So you kind of make space for yourself to do things in time.
And we have a great question here from Diana, who asks, I would be interested to know more on the role of the product designer in the product vision, and to what extent are the customer requirements considered into this process?
So when it comes to product vision, is something that, or at least how we handle it in Miro, is that we have our overall strategy and vision, but then each team creates their own vision as well. And when it comes to role of a designer in that particular process, it's very important, I would say, because in general, the line is blurring between, PM, designer, development. Nowadays, PMs and designers, they have to kind of go into each other areas and to understand better what it's all about. So you need to know the full picture, ideally. And then that's why I'm saying it's a very important role when you build a product vision, because the design is the one that thinks first. To illustrate it simply, it's like, I don't know, design is thinking first, I don't know, 6 months in upfront. Then you have product, so PM, who are like maybe 3 months upfront, so they're looking into backlog, and then you have development, they're working at hand. So our natural role is to kind of predict stuff, and whenever I do something, let's say a certain feature, you always have a current state and you have ideal UX. And this is I think what's role of a designer in building vision is to try to understand what is the perfect experience, like the best possible experience, to understand constraint of the current state, and then to try to map that down. What I like to do very simple. I cannot share that because of the obvious reasons, but we do how to explain, there's like a traction, and then you have different stuff. So if they're closer to final, means that they are more of a priority, and that the further away they are from the start means that that's something that I want to tackle later. But it's very important always to have this picture or idea, excuse me, where do you want to go with this? What's the end game, right?
So as a designer, you're obviously into the details, but how easy is it for you to step away and take a look at that bigger picture that you've been talking about?
It's not. That's a short answer. That's the king of all pitfalls, right? And even now, it's like it happens from time to time. I use advice from a very good friend of mine, Madsen, another designer. He said, Srecko, always think, what can go wrong? And that's a very good kind of, like a ace up your sleeve to make you, to keep you on your toes, and always think, what can go wrong? Okay, I'm working now this here, but how can I zoom out a bit? How can I see more? And usually how you see more, it's not by magic wand or whatever. Of course, it's again, talking to people and going to people and understanding, okay, this is my team. We are connected with A, B, C team. Let me go directly to them immediately and then try to understand what they're working on, how we can align, and this is what the bigger picture is. But it's a serious pitfall, I would say. As I said, probably the biggest one that you can, because what we are doing is very rapid, right? And people will always expect velocity for us. That's simply true. Real life situation, people expect you to do things of high quality and as fast as possible. So.
And to give people kind of an idea of the workloads and the time spent kind of working on the different kind of elements that you've been talking about, would it be possible for you to kind of talk through the structure of the design team?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. So when it comes to design team, we have design serve as so we have like a big group, our group, and then everyone goes into different cross-functional team and their chapters. So there are 3 teams that are in my chapter, which is visual structuring. So we're working on different stuff in there, and we, of course, each of these parts of the product, such as, I don't know, core, platform, etc. They would have their also managers, and of course, then after that, you have like a head of design and all the very C-level kind of people in design. This is great in Miro that you actually have that thing. And we have designers sitting at a table and discussing about most important stuff, strategically and business-wise.
And in design, there are obviously a lot of myths that go around the place. Are there any myths, design myths, that you would like to see expelled forever?
So I think we kind of touched upon that. So when you ask someone, sometimes, again, this is my opinion, right? But when people ask designers, what do you do? I'm a problem solver, and I wouldn't say so. I think that we like to believe sometimes that we are like these kind of heroes that saves the day, and then we go there and sit in our room and come out and everything is solved. And that's not true. It doesn't work like that. So yeah. Sorry, can you please? I think I lost my thought. Can you repeat the question?
Some design myths that you'd like to see expelled. Not heroes.
Yeah. Thanks. It happens sometimes. So this is one of them, that you're not necessarily a hero. Not you was the first. What I think it should be the first role of a designer is facilitating for design. So you need to enable people to do it. The way that I like to do it is very simple. You can make a workshop. Before we do something, we can do workshop together. Or what I do, it's also open design session. For example, the feature that we are working on right now is the main idea, the core idea that is kind of our unique value proposition is came from a developer, right? So this is exactly what it is. You don't need to save today, but you need to enable others to do it. Our job is later just to present that as we did, not that. And also, I think another one is what I hear a lot is like, this is not my job. And this is what I was saying before about blurring line. So nowadays, designer, you simply need to go a bit into also product management and to better understand your job and to better understand what are other responsibilities. What that means in like a very simple example means that you will write Jira tickets as well. It's not, that's also a designer job. It's not really just PMs and you're like waiting for them to do it, especially in real life circumstances. I mean, I'm very privileged to be in Miro where we have everything organized. I have my research team, I have everything in place. But when you're in a smaller company, when I was many times, usually you need to do this kind of stuff. So you need to take care of feeding developers with tickets and I don't know, sometimes even run a research. So you will have more responsibility than just one. So that would be, I think, another myth, if it is, but I like to call it like that. This is not my job, but actually it is when you really think of it. In order to do your design job in the best possible way, you also need to understand other aspects.
We have a great question here from Lucia, which ties into knowing what is your job and what isn't your job. They ask, who decides or initiates what you'll be working on to improve the product?
That's a great question. So again, I think it depends on the environment. Ideally, like here in Miro, you have really a lot of freedom. Of course, with freedom comes a responsibility, and you're held accountable for what you do. But when it comes to really like deciding and prioritizing, it always starts from the team, where we sit together, whiteboard a lot, and try to understand where we want to start. And we are very free, as I said, to come to top level and to say, okay, this is our approach. And I really like that here because it's very actionable, right? So it's not like you don't expect from people to tell you what to do. And when you think of a design job, also we're also fixing things around. So it's kind of expected from you to, even if no one tells you, hey, you need to design that and that, you should kind of try to go around and understand the things and see where the opportunities to improve stuff. But when it comes to really decision making, it starts from the team and then again goes into, of course, it has to be in compliance with OKRs. Again, it has to be in compliance with where the company wants to go. But when it comes to decision itself, how something will work, look like, where we want to, like, what's that overall direction? It's always starts from the team, and that's a very, very great thing. Actually, it's not always the case.
And that's where that over communication comes in again.
As well, but yeah, it's really not always the case. Sometimes it's different, and you really get like a very specific things what you should do. And I believe that the other way around is more productive and simply gives you more freedom, right?
So with With over 14 years of experience in design, do you think it's become easier to advocate for good UX?
I want to say yes, but no. I don't think that would be the honest answer. It's not really. It's again, as I said before, is even here I thought that hey, it's going to be different, right? People get it, but no, you need to constantly explain why are we doing this, why are such a, and I'm not just talking about like a general direction. It even comes to very simple feature details, and you always need to say stuff like, hey, look, I did this because if we do it this way, I believe it's going to meet the user need in a better way, etc., etc. So you really need to constantly talk and talk. Or another very tangible situation would be where, I don't know, before any decision, what I like to do is like you do a workshop and then you ideate on it and this kind of stuff.
Do you have any advice for junior designers to approach their managers when they want to implement more UX into their work?
Yeah, I think, or at least what worked for me so far is to be very transparent and also to have, even though I said this line is blurring, still you need to have clear responsibility in the sense, let's sit together and understand what are priorities and then simply split the tasks. What's also important, I think, for a designer, again, in my opinion, is to present yourself as a service. So your role in the team is to constantly feed with possibilities, and then it's up to mostly up to product part to kind of pick which one works the best together with you as well. So I would say this kind of stuff. Talk a lot, be transparent, try to have clear responsibilities as well, and then it's way easier to work together. Again, I think modern PMs are also having more and more of UX understanding, and that's really lovely to see. Just people whiteboarding, for example, that's really cool.
And kind of generally speaking, in the design world, which is the preferred kind of working process? Do you find yourself more often working kind of in Scrum or Waterfall, or what way do you think is the most popular way to work?
Yeah, I mean, we have some ceremonies, but to be honest, it's when you have project at hand, you're gonna most likely combine some of the methodologies, whatever is gonna empower you to arrive upon the best solution. Of course, we have structured like a Scrum approach where you have we follow tickets, Jira, etc., etc. But I wouldn't say that it's always like it's like play by book. It's more of understand what is the best for the specific project. Sometimes it can also mean that you will even work something in isolation. It doesn't mean need to be that it's like a bad thing. So it can be different. But usually we are, of course, having like our Kanban, and this is where we track. We have different epics, and this is how we track what is ongoing, what we want to do next, etc., etc. Some structure has to exist, definitely. So without it, just free shooting, it's not gonna definitely help.
So it would be good for kind of any younger designers to become familiar with all the different working.
Yeah, I would say so. So especially with Jira, and again, understanding that writing a ticket, it's not someone else's job. You're the one. You're working on a feature. No one can explain it better than you, if you think really honestly about it, right? I mean, you can give it to PM, but you're the one doing the experience the most of all the people in the XFM team. So, it's totally okay if you do that.
And we've got a lot of requests here to see if you have examples of your day-to-day work, and I know that you've got something prepared for us.
Yeah, I have just two screens because obviously I couldn't show more, but I wanted to show something because I also know when I go to a conference or a talk, I like to see something, right? So not just listening to it. So I want to show you, this is, as I said, we are asynchronous collaborations. So we are working on the ways how you can work with another colleague or more of them in a different time. So in this feature, what we do, we are actually introducing recording in Miro. What you can imagine it is like Loom recordings as well. Loom is doing something very similar, but what is different in our case is that we're trying to do super immersive experience where you would, instead of actually having like a pixel, like a video on top of the board, you can still, while you listening to me here talking, this is just to illustrate. So if I want to record something, I have, let's say, the same board that I might want to show you this, but in an asynchronous way, I could start recording in Miro, and I can show you this, and I can pan through the board, zoom in, zoom out, and you will see exactly what I was doing. And what is super cool that, on the other hand, when you play back the same thing, if you want to see what I was doing, you are also allowed to move around board and just to listen to me, but you can like make sticky notes and stuff. So this is the something that we are like the hottest, the latest thing that we are working on. Recording is Miro, and as I said, it's a very immersive experience, because it's not just dead pixels, as we like to call it in the team. It's more that it's a very like engaging experience where you can do stuff in the board and listen or watch me present. So this would be the latest thing. Of course, it's, I don't know what else could be interesting. I mean, of course, when you do this kind of stuff, you need to, again, follow some rules. So I would naturally use elements from design system and try to like, not just in visual sense, but also like experience how this works with other parts of the Miro. But this is what you arrive upon, right? But what actually looks like, this is what you do the most. This is the nicest last 10% when you do UI, and it's like super cool. But this is what you mostly do to arrive there. So you would do a lot of flows, a lot of diagramming, or so whiteboarding, like talking to other people, how we can do solve. As you can see here, we are mapping some experience and trying to understand the difference between async and sync. You would do a lot of documentation. Here's Jira. Of course, I couldn't show what's inside, but this is our backlog, so there's something that you look every day to, and a lot of boards naturally, and experimentation. I think I call it something like that. Yeah, exploration, documentation, and communication. This is what is, in my opinion, what it takes to be successful in this most feasible part, right?
And I think that would link up quite nicely into kind of learning a little bit about your research process. Because obviously you're getting ready to launch, so you're kind of fresh. This is fresh in your mind. So what is your research process, and then how does that actually help you design successful products?
So research is it's a starting point. It's always it has to be. And even if your organization you're telling you otherwise, you should try to fight for it and try to explain why it's so important. And why it's so important, because that tells you where to look. That tells you what kind of problem you want to solve. That tells you what opportunities are out there. When it comes to research here in Miro, we have super awesome UXR team, and they're the coolest here. And so I'm very privileged that I don't need to do much right now. I would just work with UXR person on defining research goals. So as a product designer, you need to participate in this part and kind of understand, okay, what we want to learn about, who we're going to talk about. You would try to define some functional roles, let's say, because you cannot just ask anyone, right? You need to understand, okay, I want to, let's say, talk to PMs and understand how they use Miro, for example. So, but it's a very starting point. Previously in my career, when I didn't have that much help, sometimes you really need to do it yourself, or at least try to drive it. And I would advise you to try to do that all the times. Even if it's a very simple thing, such as I'm going to go around my company and ask people who are stakeholders what they think about it before I start, even if you don't have a budget for nothing else, right? But you should try to understand, okay, what are the free stuff I can do? Like, what is the easy one that I can, like, easy wins? And then you can talk to people in your company. You can even, I don't know, try to find your clients and send them an email and be like, hey, we're working on something like this. Can you maybe participate and tell us your opinion? But yeah, once again, research is a starting point. Without research, there's no discovery, and discovery is the first phase of product design. So define the problem and everything else, and then design, interaction design, and everything else that comes at the very end. For me, this was as you've seen, I'm coming from a visual side, so this was quite new at some point for me. And there's a great book by Erica Hall called Just Enough Research, and I would highly advise to just have a look. It's a short book, but it gives you a lot of perspective on what really research is and how you can approach it. What are the different methodologies, whether you want to learn about something quantitative, so meaning looking into numbers, looking into some sort of a scale, or you want to do more of a qualitative research and just talk to people and understand, really, like, let's say, usability tests, or just simply understanding For example, in our case, in asynchronous collaboration, we talk to a lot of people before we even start, especially when it's something new like that. So you need to understand behavioral aspects. You need to understand all the factors that are coming in order to try to then interpret it. And as just a very last point, when it comes to product designer and research, I think what's very important is sometimes people just do a lot of research and they sometimes think that that's it. But it's very important to have a conclusion. So nobody cares if you did 3 months of research and C-level gonna ask you, but okay, but what this means? Like, tell me what it is. I mean, you looked at it, so what is? Just tell me one sentence. So you need to kind of summarize all of that. That's something that, again, I'm very lucky to have my UXR people here to help you with all of that. But also sometimes you do that on your own and just try to kind of visualize the findings and say, okay, we talked to many people. These are the key points that we learned. These are the opportunities that we found, and these are the possible way we could go. And now this is like up to all of us to decide how we're gonna do it.
Could we have the title of that book again? Because we have Mark here who is interested in some design books that have shaped your career.
Yeah, it's Erica Hall. So Erica Hall from Yule Design Agency, and it's Just Enough Research. So it's a very Just Enough Research. That's the book.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I'd like to talk a little bit about imposter syndrome, which is something that I know a lot of people kind of experience at some point throughout their career, or maybe at all points throughout their career. So how often do you feel like an imposter in your career?
So, I mean, again, take it with a pinch of salt. It's in my example and how it worked, but I haven't had that recently. Of course, I was encountering in the beginning of my career and even in mid-career, but I try to face it and to understand what it is. And again, what I think it is that being uncomfortable due to lack of knowledge. And that's usually all what it is. Let's say I'm new to discovery phase. So I need to understand how to look into the market. I need to understand how to talk to researchers. If I don't know that, of course, I'm going to feel like imposter because I'm lacking this knowledge. What is good, especially if you're in the beginning of career and or like just starting in design, just talk to people again. Talk and be very honest and say, look, I'm not comfortable with this. People won't fire you for that. It never happened. It's usually that senior designer will help you a lot to understand and just like simplify it for you. So I would say that could be the way.
And would an element of confidence come with that as well? Because especially when you're doing a lot of kind of say user research and you're speaking to so many different people.
Exactly. But that's just practicing. Like you just go through, and as you know, every failure is a stepstone. Not to repeat well-known thing, but every failure is stepstone to success. And you will feel uncomfortable. You might feel like, oh, but also there's a one good point as well. People who hired you, they hired you. So why would you think of yourself as if you're not good if they think that you're good? So they saw something in you, and you should appreciate that and just relax. And as I said, if you're not comfortable with something, it's usually imposter. For me, it was coming from lack of knowledge. And if I'm not comfortable with that, then I feel like, oh, I cannot do this. Am I good for this? You are good, but just like sit, try to do the homework, try to understand as much on your own, and then also talk to people and really be transparent to say, this is not something I'm not very comfortable with. Can you please try to help me, like, so I do it better? And that's all what it takes. And through time, you just get rid of it because you kind of get used to be uncomfortable in that way. This is what you said in the beginning, like with your going out of your comfort zone. It might be uncomfortable in the beginning, but it's a lot of benefits after you go through that, and you learn a lot, and that's why I think it's very important. It's also.
You mentioned there that the discovery stage is sort of kind of a little bit new for you, but are there any other areas of design that challenge you, and if so, kind of how do you overcome them?
Yeah, I think it's like every project get you with something, right? So it's going to change. Right now, what I'm trying to understand better is because this is the first time in my career that I work in such scale, and so what I'm trying to learn about more right now is design org. So how design work in such a big organization. I'm very lucky to have my manager, Robert, who is always reminding me of this stuff and all the things that we talked before, like how you fit in the bigger picture and into the design team, into and also into other aspects of it. But yeah, that would be, I think, something that currently I'm kind of working on more to learn more and get more comfortable with. But this is again one of these situations. You just go and you know, you go in and be there, expose yourself, and you kind of gonna learn through time. That's all okay. But any aspect can be challenging when you think of it. It's like it's gonna change with every project sometimes, because this comes from constraints, right? But I think it's our job then to use these constraints to make something something great.
We have a question here from Solen, who is asking, what is the discovery stage? So it might be a good refresher if we actually hear.
Yeah, of course. So in general, like product development, when you look at it as a diagram, it has these 3 stages. So first one is discovery, the other one is define, and the last one is design and deliver, right? So discovery stage is basically where you learn about how what you want to do is fitting or not into the market needs, how that fits into the user needs, basically just trying to understand opportunity. And this is why it's called discovery, right? Because you are discovering what could you do and in which way to meet the user needs in the best way. So this is like a very short explanation what discovery. What it takes, when you dissect it, it's really a lot of research, and that's what it is. It's a lot of research and a lot of strategy and aligning in between these two. And this tells you a lot of stuff like, okay, I want to work on X thing, how this X thing is fitting with, is there a need in the market for it or not? Am I going to do something that people really need, or is it just like a delighter that maybe a certain percentage will use, but not everyone? So this kind of stuff to help you understand your playground, your box, where we are. And then when you have that box, and this is where magic happens, because that pushes you forward, right? That tells you, I can do that, but I cannot do this. So it's a rule. Cool. Rule is great. So I can then interpret it into design, right?
And we have another question here about the different design tools that you use. Do you find yourself returning to the same ones time and time again?
Yeah, I think we are kind of, I mean, or at least in my case, in my career, it would be always like Figma sketch. And that's like the most one. I see people use a lot of other additional stuff for prototyping sometimes, such as Principal or Framer, depending on how comfortable you are with prototyping, but also like a zillion of other tools such as Notion, or like some simple things to take notes and to understand your priority. But I would say like our basic like a suite is it's Figma. First of all, with Figma comes either prototyping Figma or prototyping somewhere else, so one more prototyping tool or not. And this is like the basic package, right? And then of course whatever you use aside from that, either Google Suite or Microsoft or something third.
Because I know some students seem to think that maybe there's only one tool that they need to use when they get out there. But
no, I think it's the same as we talked with research. It's nothing is, I mean, you can try to follow the playbook, but I'm not sure if it's gonna take you somewhere a long way. So you always like find what's the most appropriate thing. I would advise, especially for our tools, they are very similar in experience. So if you're familiar with Sketch, it's gonna take you 3 days to switch to Figma and vice versa. So we're good. that's all okay. But yeah, definitely not one tool. It started with Adobe, of course, a good old time when you had layer 178. This is a bit better with UI specific tools such as Sketch.
We seem to be getting a lot of questions here about time. So I think a lot of people heard 6 months for different projects, and they're having a mild freak out over that. So we've one question here from Diana, who again is asking, how much time approximately would you spend on each phase of the UX process? So maybe if you could use the recent the kind of recording feature that you're adding.
Yeah. That's a good question. So of course I cannot tell you exactly in days, but let's try to make like a bulk percentages just for sake of conversation. I would say that if the whole process is 100%, I would say that, I don't know, certainly 40% goes into this discovery stage, because this is most crucial one. If you don't understand, how we like to say, doing the right thing or doing the things right. So you need to understand what is the right thing to do and why. And I would say that this is where you spend the most time. of this 6 months, let's say. When it comes to defining and delivering, they would take other 60%, like 30 and 30, I would say. So they're a bit less than discovery phase, where what that means that after you define your problems, you will sit, of course, and create a certain user interface, and then it would take time for developers to develop that and to become the real thing, not just your Figma file, right? But I would say the most of the time you spend on the discovery and understanding what is the problem, what is the need, what is the market fit, and how this fits into your strategic goals.
Okay, great. And then again, with what comes with managing time also comes with managing the workload. And we have a question here from Paul, who's asking about the design system that Miro use. So he wants to know if it's a separate team that looks after the design system and maintains it, or is it the responsibility of the entire team?
So design system is one of the most fragile things that designer can work on. I would just like to say that, because it's very, so you need to talk a lot about it. You need to even to explain it even more than UX, right? As we mentioned, because for people to understand why it's so important. And it is important when it's in a great shape. Here in Miro, we do have, of course, the design system team, because this is how they feed your UI. And ideally, you should not think about spacings or which font to use. That should be predefined. What you think more of is experience as whole, interaction model, mental model, and this kind of stuff. And then this great team feeds you with already made stuff. Of course, like in this particular case that I show, recording system new, so we had to introduce some of the components. And this is where product design, if you're not in the design system team, this is where your role kick in. You should try to help these people by kind of contributing to the system. And also, first of all, before you make even a decision to make something new, really go there and see, is there anything I can reuse? Do I need to use the new stuff? And if both yes, then proceed, but still talk to them so you don't break the rules. Usually these teams, they have very, very nicely provided like a set of guidelines, if you like, that you should just simply follow, and it helps you to build components that are in compliance with the design system. But it usually works like this. In most of the companies where I was in the tool, I was actually working on a design system, and this is why I'm saying that it's so fragile, because you constantly need to work on it, and unless the company understands that this is a product itself within the company, it's very hard to maintain.
So when people keep asking here about kind of time and work management, I think maybe it's the idea of collaboration that really needs to be emphasized, because I know we touched on this above, kind of when we were talking about cross-functional teams, but can you just kind of reassure us just how collaborative the process can be, that it won't just be kind of one person on the product design team who's left doing all of the work?
Yeah, I think you made a great point. So, and it can be put in an equation like that the more collaboration, the better time management and the better velocity. Why? Because simply people know what you're doing, what you're working on, and you know what are other people working on, and you're more aligned, and then you wouldn't duplicate work. You wouldn't do something that is, let's say, impossible to do technically, right? This is what might cause problems and what can cause more time if you design something and then you understand that this is something that cannot be done, for example. So in that sense, collaboration, it's very important. And what we like to do, if we have a problem, we like to sit and whiteboard for how many hours is needed until we until we are done. So it's very important. It's going to speed up things tremendously if you keep communicating and constantly like reminding people, hey, I'm working on this, you're working on that. Is it all good? Look, is there anything that you see that can be a problem in future, etc., etc. So it just gives you more like a safer bet.
So we have about 10 minutes left on our call here, and we'd love to hear just a bit more about about advice of breaking into kind of UX, UI, and product design. So for people who are kind of starting out, who are studying or taking courses, what advice would you give to people who are very, very fresh to the product design and UX world?
Yeah, that's a good one. So, I mean, I hope we got some takeaways already, but let me try to do it like this. So there's like an external thing and internal thing. Externally, what I would like to say, aside from the thing that I mentioned to talk in other people's terms. So to constantly talk about design, but in different languages. You also preferably should always have rationale for your decisions. What that means? That means that you did your homework, that you really sat and understood the problem and understood everything. And when you do a certain design, preferably you should have reason why you did it. So and shouldn't be a reason that is your hunch or something like that. So it should be evidence-based reason, right? That could be based on the research, based on the strategic goals, etc., etc. But this is, I think, one of the advice that I could give is have your rationale, because it's gonna anticipate a lot of questions that you're gonna get down the road. And the more you understand, the more confident you will talk about it, and also naturally you will be more confident because you understand it better. And then it's not a problem to talk to anyone about what you're doing, simply like that. And I guess I don't know, the more how we say, more internal thing would be that especially for people who are switching careers or industries, none of the knowledge is disposable, none of the experience is disposable. So this is let's say, I don't know, you did something before, you were something in the other industry, or you were, I don't know, a totally different kind of occupation before you wanted to become a designer. There's going to be a certain point, and trust me in this, when that is going to kick in and you will say, this is my thing, I know that, and it has to, because this is your path, and things has to make sense. Like it have to make sense. Dots will connect because it's your path, and it simply has to.
I like that you mention about hunches, because I think a lot of people will act a lot on their kind of natural instincts to just do something, but it's very good in the design process to always ask why and to explain why.
Exactly. You need to have so you need to have. Thanks for bringing this in. You need to have an attitude on stuff. So you need to have opinion. This is getting back to this rationale. You need to have your take on it. But again, it cannot be based on what you dreamt last night, right? You need to go through the process. You need to learn, and then you can say, look, this is what I think that it should be, and you can challenge me. But because of these and these reasons, I think that this is the way to go.
So moving on from kind of maybe the kind of education or training aspect of kind of UX, UI, and product design, what advice would you have for people who are maybe kind of going for their first interviews for these different roles? What should they prepare in terms of portfolio, and what kind of questions do you think that they should prepare for before they go in?
Interestingly, like last year we did UX London talk, and we had like a panel, and everyone in the panel sent the same thing for the same question, and we all said, be honest. A lot of times you see people and they try to act as if they know something, and as soon as you go into the details, and I ask you, but how did you do that? It can break down. So first of all, be very honest and understand what you know and what you don't know, and again, it's up to people that are trying to hire you if they want to hire you or not. And just so no bad feelings if that is normal. I mean, in most of the cases you won't get the job, right? Just simply how it goes. And but yeah, be honest, be like, try to understand what you know, and also, of course, needless to say, you need to have your case study. There are many. We can figure out a way. I have like a nice talk with a lot of links that I wanted to share later. There's a lot of things to go for inspiration, to just go for the best designers out there, and then look how they build their case study. So what it tells you, again, it's going to be the same thing: discovery, why, define how, and eventually how it looks like, right, when you have the UI ready. So you need to have your portfolio, of course, but it's very important to be honest and not to fall for this trap where you want to present yourself as something you're not, because sooner or later it's gonna bite your ass back, and it's not gonna work in your favor. And people appreciate when you're transparent and open. Don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean that you need to go there and say like, hey, look, I don't know this. Don't. I mean, but also if you're asked about something that you're not competent, it's all okay to say, in my career so far, I haven't had a chance to work about much on this, but I would really like to learn more about it, and maybe this is the opportunity to do so. And that's very appreciated when you're just very, very honest. People, as I said, a lot of time people read the articles and they kind of over prepared for this, and they have the questions ready in head, and sometimes it can fall apart. So I mean, it can fall apart like this as well. I lost my thoughts in the middle of conversation when you're just talking. But yeah, I would say not too much preparation, in sense like I'm gonna learn my script, because the real life is not script. They're gonna ask you things, they're gonna ask you details, and if they sense that you are kind of, you know, not lying, but kind of maybe covering some stuff, they would get to that, because it's very simple to just, if I ask you about research and you tell me, hey, yeah, I did that a million times, and you did it once, I'm going to ask you, okay, so how you use data for quantitative research? What was the last time that you did it, and how did you do it? How did you understand what was the way to go? And you're like, oh, so just be yourself. I know it sounds a bit lame when you say that. It's like be yourself, but that's what it means. Be honest. Understand what you know and what you don't know, and don't be embarrassed about it. That's normal. You cannot. No one knows everything. That will never happen. I learn every day. Everyone learns every day. It's not. There's no point in your career where you're like, oh, now I know everything about this. I'm just everything. It's not like that. It's always something new. It's always a new challenge, a new constraint. Sometimes even if you're super confident with something, I don't know, let's say whatever, UI, it's going to come to a situation when you really you need to, learn more. So it's not bad thing in interview to say that you're not comfortable with something. Again, you don't need to flag it out yourself. But if you're asked, really try to be transparent and have reason why. This is, I think, also important. A lot of people come to place and they're like, yeah, but have you tried that app? Have you tried that product? Like you don't necessarily, sometimes, let's talk real life terms. Sometimes you just need a job, and it doesn't really matter. Like, I'll do anything. Just I need a job. I need a paycheck. But still, do this. Like, check it out. Check what it does about, because it's going to be very much easier to talk than in the interview. If people, and this is like a very good sign of you being engaged. People like to see. I would even advise you, if you, let's say, go to an interview, sign up for that product, because sometimes people check if you sign up. Seriously, it happened to me. I lost job once because early in my career, because I didn't do so, and that's how I learned my lesson. Go there, check it out. Even if it's not your dream job, dream jobs are not happening every day, so that's normal. Again, let's take it realistically. So it's all good, and I think our profession in itself is so interesting, and you can make it interesting, whatever it is, right? If you're really passionate about it, and that's what you like to do.
That's a fantastic answer. You've given some great, you've given the ups and the downs in what it takes to land that job.
But that's how it goes. Yeah.
You mentioned that you've a document with some links for everybody.
Yeah, I would like to share that later on, because it's in my private computer that I don't have access now. But I would like to share that later on, and maybe we can find a way to
share with everybody.
It's like it's a very simple. Why? Because sometimes I like to also mentor people, and then this is like a package that I like to give them, like a list with what I find the most interesting product designers or website, and then you can just get the idea how my case study should look like, right? So I'm not just going to put one picture and say, oh, this is like I showed you today. This how I show you today. This is not the way to show your case study, because you need to go all the way, right? This is the reason. This is how I approach it. This is why I approach it this way. And this is the final result, because of, again, evidence-based, because of the research I did, because of the discovery I did. This is where I arrive upon, and that's my why. So you should have that rationale. So why something is happening.
Brilliant. Thank
you.
And
I will share that later. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll make sure that we can share it with everybody who registered for the event. So if you're worrying about receiving it, we'll make sure that you get a hand on it. So we are at the very end of this evening's live event. And Srecko, thank you so much. You've been so honest and so insightful and so colorful about your journey as a project designer with Miro.
Thank you very much.
And I'm sure you've got a lot of new fans here who've tuned into the chat box is hopping.
It was a real pleasure, and thanks for reminding me. I think this is a great initiative you guys are doing, because this is how you see what really is, right? You can do all the boot camps and courses. That's a great start, but you need to expose yourself, go there, and then once you kick in the real life thing, then you understand how it really works. So it was a great pleasure. I really like to do this when I have a chance. Thanks for inviting me again.
Incredible, and we'd love to have you back again any other time. So thank you, everybody. This will also be available as a recorded video that you can come back and view at any point. If there's any points that you missed on the first watch, this will be available to you. And we will have our next live event on July 6th, and that will be a tools and tips webinar with Luis Urroch from Figma. So please join us for that, and thank you again, everybody. Have a lovely evening.